Welcome, everybody. Today, I've brought you another interesting topic. Yeah, before I begin, I would like to say a few things. Once again, in 2019, I met a crazy psychopathic person from internet. His name is Sethikas Boza, and he scammed me. He lied to me, and I'm not crying about that thing anymore. Okay, I move past that. What I'm trying to say here is this is not what I do. If I ever had a YouTube channel, I would not be creating content like this. Okay, but the thing is, since I am in this situation, and this is what you get to fight your fight against lunatics. So that lunatic, what he did is first he tried to scam me one to one himself, and he has his whole narcissistic and psychopathic game, and that game did not work. So then he started to call different people. Very first person he called was Logan Hart from your Wizard Factory, something. Then he called Thunder Wizard. Then he called Michael Tessarion. Then he called Mark Passio. Then he called Jordan Maxwell, by the way. Okay, he used all these people and then numerous other people from all over the internet. He used all these people as an accessory to protect him. Like he scammed me, and he could not, he did not know what to do with me, because usually what happens is majority of people get scammed, and they either react. So Sathikas Booza had a whole game planned for people who react and everything else. And trust me, these grifters on internet, when you're interacting with them from any country right now, not just my country or your country or some other country, you're not interacting with one person. You're not interacting with what they present themselves. There's a whole game for behind this thing, and the game is it has like they will bait you into something that you don't know. First of all, you don't want to participate, don't have any intention, and later on, even after clarifying yourself, because these people are immoral and unethical and psychopathic, so they don't understand the agreement, the verbal agreement you had with them. What they work on is what they can prove later on, or what you can prove later on. So this is a whole game, and this is the whole basis of all these things. Long story short, Sathikas Boza, he did this thing, what he did to me, to multiple people. They informed me as well. Now these people, they are stuck, because what happened, as far as I've understood before me, what was going on, these people were talking about crazy things about every single thing. Like, for example, in boxing, people say that you can punch or you can hit a punching bag, as long as it is not hitting you back. So the moment punching bags start to hit back, these people start to go insane. Now what happened is, after all this interaction with these insane people, the insanity is on multiple levels. I will try to explain a little bit here and there what I have experienced. So first, these people, and you have to understand a lot of things. You cannot verify this one to one with one to one verification, or if you did not have those elements, you cannot, with your intellect, you cannot claim anything about this situation. It's it's experience based. It's like, if you don't understand what psychology is, I don't care what you have heard about psychology, I don't care what you may have heard about some term called psychopathy, sociopathy from internet, from TV. I don't care. You, as long as you don't have that actual understanding on these things, you will always misjudge these things, right? On top of all that, the psychology is one thing. There's different elements of these people that one person has disturbed with his actions, and he's enjoying his life. Now I'm sitting here dealing with all sorts of people, trying to explain them, and instead of understanding the main issue, they're deflecting from the different angles, different. They're trying to protect that person still somehow, okay? Because that person invoked. These people think that that person is some child in his 50s, by the way, and these people need to protect him. And if you look at that person, you will see that he's a whole. It's insane. And at the top of all that, these people will preach you some morality, some spirituality, something. So I'm dealing with all these things. Beside this, I'm also dealing with another type of lunatics, random trolls, policies of platforms, all sorts of insane things, and I'm trying to make it stop somehow. And that seems to be like when you are among a herd of predators. So every actions you take to de-escalate, they see it some sort of weakness, because it's not that it's your issue, it's that the issue of these people, where they sniff these things, and that's how they operate themselves. I'm not talking about Tiserion per se here. I'm talking about the people who tried to attack me like this, okay, for years. Now they will talk about all these things, so they are more about theater play. They're more about creating, generating content. They are not about discussion. They are more about projecting and blaming and labeling and all this stuff at the same time. When you start to do this, these people, they break their own so-called rules, and they start to either attack you or do all sorts of crazy things. Right. So here we have Michael Cesarian with some other person. I don't know his name. Never saw him before. And he's talking shit about Eastern philosophy. So these people are openly allowed to be racist, to project hatred and everything else on these platforms like YouTube. But when you start to present your side, as long as they are talking shit about your culture, your value, anything, that's fine. That's great. That's acceptable. The moment you start to talk about these things, you either get banned, your video gets get taken down, and then once again, with clear evidence, nothing happens against such people. Nothing. And then they say that everything is fair and everything is this and that, and these people are there backward or something. So let's see whether it is just about the attire you are wearing. What is this about? Because if it is about language, think the game is set, that is set is not fair. I'm speaking in English that I'm not comfortable with at this point, to be honest. And I don't see these people speaking in Hindi, so it takes a lot of efforts. What type of effort it takes is, like, for example, I was doing my stuff, and one day I came across this lunatic, and I explained this lunatic in clear words. But later on, there should be no misunderstanding or anything. And that person was weaponizing since day one, and he created multiple narratives. He splitted that story into multiple narrative using multiple sources, and in all those sources he lied. And what people, when they analyze these things, they analyze with these things that is on internet or something, and that become the entirety of the truth, no matter what person who has been through these experiences is saying. They don't care about that. Okay, they will find new and new things. Sometimes they find tropes to hate, sometimes they find some sort of things they can twist, and then they say that they are the moral and ethical and all that type of people. And the other person who is saying things with whatever he has got, just imagine to contact with a person, and he's claiming to help other people, by the way. and that person is scamming and abusing and harassing and attacking, that can be seen clearly. So that's not wrong. That's not wrong. That is morality according to these people. And when the person who has been, like, who's explaining these things, the person becomes immoral for just saying things how they are. So what these people do is, they always do keep the conversation one sided. They always create tropes, generate narratives, twist people's psyche. Sometimes they play victim, sometimes they play alpha male. So when they never keep things in the reality field how they are. They do this weird type of speech where they try to bash. Like for example, I will show you in this video as well. So what happened is, many years ago, 3 4 years ago, when Satyakas Boza was exposing that scumbag, he went running to this to Sarion, and he kissed his ass. And to Sarion, he was spousing about Trump and all stuff with Boza, and they are all white supremacist, right wingers, and whatever the hell they say, they speak in terms of spirituality, this and that. That's all a cover up. Michael Tsarion is white supremacist in a way. And interesting enough, I've seen one video. Michael Tsarion is like his grandparent, something were Nepalese. So he's not pure Irish. He is mixed with Nepal or something. His father was into this Nepalese Hinduism, or grandfather I'm talking about, not I don't know about his father. So he was a charlatan. Alright. And since they are, and what he says, actually, it is really difficult. See, I will explain you the issue, where the issue is. The issue here is, if we talk in terms of East and West, East and sorry, West and India. I don't know about other East, because East is big region where there are different philosophies as well, such as Chinese, Japanese. We have your Persian, and even the Middle Eastern Islam and all stuff. And in that same thing from India, when we talk about India, there are other philosophies such as your, how do you call it, Sikh, Sikh, Sikh. Your Sai Baba, if you've heard this word, I'm not sure if you have. If you have, then you know what I'm referring. There are other philosophies like Jainism and indigenous practices. So there's a whole mix of these things. So when I talk about myself, I talk about my background. And my background is, I, I was born a Hindu, in a Hindu family, in a lower caste. And after some years in life, 15, 16 years, after seeing all sorts of craziness, I dropped Hinduism. And although I continued something called meditation and yoga. Yoga and meditation can be done without having a deity or something. Okay, and they are all philosophical things. If you really go in deeper into these things. So after that, I focused on science for many years, and I have a master's degree in computer science. But down the line, somewhere, I started following Buddhism, because my father, he always followed Buddhism, and my mother's side, they followed Hinduism. So mother's side, as in my mother, and my father followed Buddhism. So I start to look into Buddhism, and I start to go on retreats and this and that. So I start to see that this is much better version of something that people call spirituality. Okay, so then I start to study deeper into Buddhism, and then I realized that Buddhism is not some merely religion or anything else that Western people have labeled. Like for example, right now we have your Donald Trump, and there's a cult of MAGA. And these, if in future, if somebody start to study history, they will not just study it like what we have experienced. They will study it in a different way, and they will try to put pieces together. So they will have a whole different picture. In the same way, that's a negative example, by the way. The positive example is, let's take. I don't see anything positive in the West, so I don't know how to even describe to you. I will use my cultural aspects from the positive end. So right now we still have Buddhism, okay, and Buddhism, it's not running a scam per se. How people try to make it, like for example, Buddhism has this philosophy where everybody is accepted. Buddhism accept everybody, even Satanist, everybody, because this is the philosophy of Buddhism. And it's not like it's accepting Satanists, so it is allowing Satanists to take over. No, it's not like that. No. Buddhism has a philosophy where we see human, as a part of natural world, nature. And we have this philosophy: if we live properly, we don't need a philosophy to live properly, or a religion to live properly. That's the actual philosophy of Buddhism, by the way. What we need to do is we need to do things properly. Okay, you don't need a philosophy, a religion, anything to hide behind, right? So I explained this in the older videos. Nobody understood. I got like 10 views, so I stopped talking about these things. Avalamban and Anavalamban, that is his targeting, by the way, in this video, and I will get into it in a bit. Let me check my camera first, because I've been talking for a while. Sometimes what happens is, okay, it's working. Yeah. So when you hide behind something, anything, any religion, any philosophy, any thisism, thatism, then that becomes an issue ultimately. So with Buddhism is a old cultural thing. Like for example, right now, what is more closer to Buddhism is science and psychology. Buddhism is a ancient version of science and psychology. Since it's an old practice, and we are living in a post-modern era, so things did not update in these things like that. And since these how do you call this, these things, these cultural things like Buddhism, they also have their own system, what to include, what not to include, the reason for doing that. So these things have not become modernized. Now what modern people think is, since it's not modern, so it's not valid. But they don't understand the philosophy of Buddhism. They don't understand the philosophy of even their own philosophy. They don't have any philosophy, first of all their philosophy is driven from the East. And how they are presenting these philosophies is using their narcissism. So they have blindly stolen a lot of things from the East, and they have twisted things, they plagiarized it, and then they twisted the words, and they are backing that plagiarism as a parallel, and they're backing it with the narcissism. Because if something exists organically, it does not require your like defense. You don't need to be defensive about these things. Those things speaks for themselves. But what I keep on seeing in these people constantly is they're constantly bashing the original source somehow, and they're trying to make their twisted versions of these things that is basically generated from delusions, if not just plain plagiarism, and they are backing that uh, delusion with narcissism or psychopathy. That being said, Michael Tussarion is not a simple man. A lot of things he says, he catch them properly, but his hatred toward Eastern philosophies and Eastern things, it get in the way. So he don't see the whole picture. He reached there, but somehow he twist his, like he's jeopardize his own effort by becoming racist toward these things. So we will witness this in this video, and let's get into this without wasting much of your time.
really long and ponderous to write maybe one or two other shorter ones. And that's what this kind of is. Um, we wanted to delve into it because you see, we're in danger right now of, well, I mean, it's just a personal opinion, but I think that because we've been for so many decades, it actually goes really back into the 1800s, this exposure to the East and to the Orient, a lot of poison has come into the West. A lot. Depends on.
What Michael Sarin is saying, the East has poison, and a lot of poison has come into the West. Okay, I think he's referring to the part where I've talked about when people talk about New Age. So, what people see as New Age and they label it as Hinduism or Indian philosophy, something. What we see that New Age is as a Western thing. Like, we did not teach these people this. These people did not understand this thing properly, and they made this thing about this. So, they're trying to push that blame onto us people, where with against our best efforts, those people twist these things and made these things toxic. So that's insane how these people interpret these things. Anyway, the thing is, we have a shared history with Europe, by the way, proto-Indian or proto-Germanic, Indo-Germanic history. So before this, all this Christianity and all that stuff, even in language, India and Europe had a mixed culture, believe it or not. And that culture was mixed with even Iranians. And later on, there was some madness that happened. Like, for example, you may have heard about this term called Aryan, or how you say it, Aryan, in your West Aryan. How you say it even? I don't know how these terms they are taken from our language can be seen roots. Like, for example, if we had a term called as Aryan, that's how you properly pronounce it, or Arya. Arya means noble. Aryan means noble. It's not. It does not mean German, or you know what I'm talking about, right? So what those Germans they became, they used their narcissism and they became something else. So Aryan means noble. Alright. So how these terms get stolen and get relabeled or a little bit twisted in pronunciation or something, how those people confuse themselves that this is their background. Like, if a thing that is taken from a language literally has all its how do you call it, hallmarks still preserved there. I'm not saying that those were our, no, they stolen it and they could not handle it and they became crazy using these things, and we warned it against our proper warning and everything else. Now somehow people think that Aryan people are Germans or people with blue eyes, this and that. They made all sorts of horse shit around this, but when we look into the history, the true ontological reality of or this, how do you call it? I'm skipping that word. Okay, so background. When you go to the background and find the origin of things, you will see that Indo-Iranian or Indo-Persian background had Aryans. Okay, noble. I'm not talking about nobility. Nobility is Western thing. I'm talking about noble because as far as our religions goes, they're not connected with any. Like, for example, if you look into the British history, God save the Queen, this and that, what this is it. So they're very closely related. But in India, what happened is in the older times, there were priesthood in a kingship and all stuff. But the origin of spirituality per se, if you go into deep into all these things, they did not have any connection with your royalty at all. They were independent of royalty. But later on, what happened is, for example, they are hermits. They are spiritual people, and hermits is a twisted word once again. So they were practicing their thing, and since king had control over a rajya, or how do you call it, empire, so they would know that they exist, some holy man, some this and that. So they used to come to know about these people as part of their this thing, but they did not have direct connections, at least in the beginning. And they used to call or summon these people to their palaces or somewhere, and then they used to ask these people, like beg even, okay, beg, literally, to help them to win a war, this and that. And out of pity, out of karuna, they used to give them some pointers. Later on, these kingships, these and this and that, they used to twist those things again. So this is how these connections, they became prominent in the society. Later on, what happened is this kingship, they made these things. I'm talking about ancient history still, but still in the ancient history, as the thing progressed, these things became, like, first generation died after doing that, second generation, third generation, fourth generation, somehow they used to integrate these things in their palaces and all stuff. Okay, so this is the real history, but the true history is, when you look into these things, and even before European intervention, Europe, not just Britain, I'm talking about. Before Britain, there was Portuguese who tried to conquer India. There was French. Okay, and I'm not even talking about this thing. I'm talking about even before that. So this is how our history is. Now, back to this topic. The reason for me to give you this background is, once again, this is not my thing. This is just how I know these things. I have no interest to talk about these things on internet because I don't believe in all that stuff. I believe in present, doing things right now, no matter what is history. History, if history had some flaws in it, there's no reason to repeat those flaws in today's time to win a war, to be dominant, this and that. Whatever people in history did not do right, does not give you any right to still continue that. If you say that history and people from the history, they made mistakes, so don't make mistakes right now. It is exactly the same as it was in the older time. Older time people did not have much control over this. So you are blaming them, at the same time repeating the same thing. How does this thing make you any better? Does not make you any better. But since these people, they're into all history and everything else, let's keep that. Let's see, keep that perspective, and let's talk in those terms, the point of view. Okay, because when you tell these people directly, they don't, the ego comes in the way first, and their minds, first they get into denial, and then they get into attack mode, or they feel insulted or something. And after some years, when they finally understood what was being told, they make that thing about them, and then they weaponize it, and then they fight with us people who are still telling these people exact same thing. And the crying never stops. So yeah, let's listen.
how you look at it, right? It's not that some good hasn't come in. There are some things worthwhile, but on the whole, it's like a house that has never been cleaned. It's never been flushed out. The carpets, the dust, and so
Yeah, so Michael Tosayan is talking about India, and when I'm hearing him, listening to this, I can sense a little bit racism here. because these people are, they they think they are very quirky, and they can be racist, they can demean somebody, at the same time they will make it about something else, never been dusted, this and that. But he's talking about as an Indian history. Yeah, they are issues for exactly same thing. The problem is not being clean or this and that. The problem is the slaves of European background that took over our culture, and they did not let us clean it. Okay, because they wanted to maintain that dominance over that, so that on one hand they can have their way with this thing, and they kept this indigenous populace logged in, and they maintained the narrative, a platform of narrative over this thing, and they continued to exploit, do all sorts of crazy things. So they maintained this thing, they made this thing to calcify, to become the norm. In their norm, in their narrative, now they did this so that they could present themselves as superior. If you look into the mental psychology of these colonizers or European, how do you call it, when one type of people they take over other people's country, invaders, European invaders. What they did is, mostly if you look into this history that is still continuing of people with this colonization mentality, what they have, the issue is British, Irish people say that Irish people are good, listen, no, they're not. Actually, Irish people used to be criminal. Okay, I have given enough respect to these comebacks. Still look at Ireland, go to Ireland and see how many drunkards are there and what type of culture they have. Since these people are being like this, so yeah, we also know what you are. And ironically, our culture is not very different. If we look independently, unbiased, without bias, the background is more prominent with the West, and we have Eastern things going there. Like Irish people, there are a lot of farmers there. Okay, India has a lot of farmers. Even our flags are almost identical with a little bit variation. So I'm not talking about this thing, but we also know what you are hiding. It's not hidden from us. You're not superior. You only you don't have got this mouth. We also have a mouth. We also notice things, right? Now the punching bag is starting to punch back. Now let's see where this is going to go from here.
Eventually, you're going to get, mold, whether you realize it or not, and whether you even smell it or not. It's going to creep very gradually through the
Yeah, this is why look at the history of West right now. What's going on in the West? Epstein case, Donald Trump, all these people, they're seen as clean people. There's no dirt there and this and that, right? See what they're doing in an island. Actually, this is what the West is about. These are the actual values of the West are. And I'm not talking about the entire West, but just imagine these nations, America specifically, it used to blame whole world. It created all sorts of tropes that people are using in today's time, be it about Afghanistan people, be it about your any other culture. Just pick and look into the history of these people and see how brutally these people have dehumanized those people. All the while doing this thing, this Epstein thing, this is just one thing. It's a sliver. And now they're talking. Now they're showing their outrage when everything is over and people have suffered for years. Now, what about the time when people were warning these people and these things were happening? What about that? So this does not just expose Epstein alone. This, and for some reason, West keep on doing this thing that all their bigger like figureheads and everything else, they are all corrupted. All corrupted. If you look at the history of America right now, since senior Bush administration to this point, And this is not my thing. This is what Americans have been exposing. They're all corrupted. They're all known for this thing. And somehow people don't see that these people are neck deep into this thing. And they still have the audacity to blame, to call people with these drops. And it's hilarious. It's hilarious.
years. And it's the same thing with the West. So what's happened right now is that the West is basically soaking in falsity. And therefore, it's
West is soaking in falsity because West thought that it was spatial. It was all sorts of West. What West has been doing all these years is, see, narcissism, psychopathy, all these things are recognized not even 100 years, 30, 40 years ago properly. They're not documented properly in the history and in the modern psychology and psychiatry. If you look into all these things, they are described not very long ago. Let's take a timestamp from 200 years max. Okay, that's, I'm still giving it too much. Before that, all the people, all these viceroys or whatever the fuck they had, and 200 years too much, 100 years I will say. So they were, they had all these positions and everything else. The more brutal somebody was, the more crazier somebody was, the more psychopathic somebody was, the higher their grades were, positions were. Okay, the more they were revered, because the more they were feared. And he's saying that somehow Eastern things creeped in. And who did we go there? Did you people come to us? First of all, we tried to give you these things properly. None of you people understood these things, still don't understand, and always scapegoat somebody else. These people have to scapegoat somebody else, never take their responsibility, their personal responsibility. He's talking like that he's a 5-year-old kid and somebody has stolen his candy from his hand. What about your personal responsibility about all these things? Yeah, there are a lot of things. I can understand his point of view where he's saying that, and I'm taking my responsibility here. But is he taking his responsibility in the same situation, or people from his background, what they were doing it? Are you all naive? Are you all innocent? What the fuck is he even talking about? What were your people doing? What are your people doing still? Let's talk about that for a while. Then we will talk about these things also together. I will expose these things myself. But first of all, do you recognize your own shortcomings? What you people have been doing to the world? Do you understand this thing? And I'm not blaming the whole thing. Once again, West has a lot of good things also. I'm not bluntly opposing the West. I'm opposing people like this. I understand. I've learned a lot of things from the Western uh, knowledge base, and they are better, more polished in some way than our cultural things, and I respect those things. So don't confuse me with a racist or something. Okay, I'm just trying to expose this thing that nobody ever take in consideration, because usually what happens is when there's something going on between two nations or two east and west, let's say. So people always take points of the person who has more articulated English or this and that. Because since I'm from east, so obviously my English will be a little bit not up to that mark. Okay, so let's keep this balance first, and I'm still trying my best. So let's see what is going on with this thing. Western thought got confused with Eastern. What?
so wall to wall that almost the vast majority of, humanities teachers in the top colleges, they or their wives are Buddhists, for instance, right? Now, you think that that's not going to affect some of the Western disciplines that they're involved in? It does. It even affects things as deep as quantum science. Most of the other books that are written on quantum science by, say, New Age writers, I won't mention any names, right?
Quantum science, that's a new term. New age writer, this and that. No, the Buddhism and Hinduism, and Buddhism is way beyond this even. So I'm not talking in terms of Buddhism. Most of the Hinduism is an older religion. Its roots goes as long as far beyond as 10,000 years in the documented history. We have temples that are 10,000 years old. Okay, so Hinduism is based around quantum physics, quantum science. All right, not per se they are talking about science. No, the structure of Hinduism that is based around the quantum understanding of the universe. Let me put it this way. They're not talking about quantum science, they're not teaching you quantum science, but the whole structure that Hinduism is based around is using quantum science as the background of it. All right.
But they themselves are also steeped in this Eastern mysticism. So now they think they have a virtue when they blend the two traditions. No, it's not. No, it's
This
not.
is this is what he's lacking. He don't even understand this thing.
It's not a virtue. It's not a virtue when you arbitrarily take Western scholars, Western disciplines, just because you happen to see some, uh, you know, maybe lightweight parallels to something that's been said in the East, that you immediately jump and go, there you go. The East was either the origin of these ideas or, well, either way, look at that. We're on.
The thing is, let me tell you what is going on here. He's on to something, and let me clarify that. I will not blindly bash him or say Westerners are thieves and they were more busy in quote unquote assaulting people. I will not use the exact terms. And drinking alcohol and stealing people's property and enjoying their cherishing their lives. At that time, we had universities. I'm talking about thousands of years. Old thing. We had structured universities. We call Visvidyalaya or something else also in the older times. We had libraries. Okay. Egypt is not very far away from India if we look at it. Like East Egypt is next to your Iran, and Iran Persia is used to be our neighbor before there was no Pakistan and all that stuff. We were adjacent to Iran, and Iran was then we have Egypt past that. Okay, so all these civilizations, they used to study these things, and then Western people have stolen this idea somehow, tried to make these things as Western. I don't know how they made it, but we were more into these things. India used to be a very prominent thing in this prominent culture in these things. Okay, India had a lot of respect in the older times, and what happened is Greece, Greco-Roman, Egyptian, Indian, all right, they were all in Chinese. So Chinese culture was side to side this thing, and our people have a lot of influence in Chinese and Japanese culture as well. So we had libraries. We used to have these scholars. I'm not talking about modern scholars, all right. And they all used to do research, this and that, all sorts of things in the older times. Okay, so what he's getting at is that thing. So yeah, this is why East has more influence, and people think that this is why Eastern people did it because we did it. And I'm not taking credit for India alone, because we also learned from Misr. You may have not heard this term, but that's how we call Egypt in India, Misr. So that's why nobody find these references when they pull out the history. So they try to look into all these things, quote unquote research. into these things because we did not have the term Miss Egypt, MITSR, myths. We still call it that because that's what was its name, not Egypt. All right.
Parallel with the East. The East deserves this, thunderous applause. No, it doesn't.
It actually does, imbecile.
And there's many, many reasons, and I try to always bring those reasons up in my work. But we're not touching on that now. We're just going to say that the West has been slowly, slowly inundated with this from the time of theosophy, from the time of spiritualism, and then, of course, massively, because that was dying away. But then came the whole New Age movement, which then resaturated. And
New Age movement. I don't think West has its history properly. I think there are a lot of lunatics. There are a lot of mouths who don't even understand the proper history, who don't even understand the terminology properly. What he's calling New Age as a Eastern thing, Hinduism is way older than any Western anything in anything. I'm talking about India. Indian stuff is way older than any Western knowledge base here. Any. And what was older than that we also recognize as Indians was Egypt. So they were older cultures. And let me give you idea about how these things were. So in older times, your Arabic, Arab, how we call it, it used to be a Marusthal, means desert, massive desert, and they were settlement. How do you call it? Population was very scattered. It's not like how it is right now, enjoying in the Burj Khalifa and this and that. No. So Arabic people were very much in contact with Indian people. Okay, and Turkish, Indian, Persian, these cultures were intermingled with India because India was a bird of gold, sone ki chidiya. India was a very rich country back then. Okay, and these other subcultures, they used to feel proud to be part of Indian culture. So we had more connection with these people in the older times. And I'm not trying to glorify these things. I'm trying to keep things objective here. So later on, what happened is there are always some sort of war, some division. There are all sorts of invaders, European invaders, Islamic invaders. And once again, I'm not talking about the right wing Hinduism here. I'm not protecting that either. I'm just giving you a true understanding on these things. So what you see in the Roman Empire, and then there came Rome, all sorts of division, and then there was Greece, this and that. And as far as I've understood, Greece was a like what was the thing with Greece? If you look at the Greece, there's a more intermingling of Greece and Arabia. It's not purely your Roman Empire. Uh, it's like people who broke away from the Roman Empire. And these Arabic people, they intermingled. All right, so it's something like that. And all the times, if you look into these things, today we have democracy. We try to blame all these things. We try to scapegoat because what we have right now is we try to project things at these things. But in the older time, there was no democracy like this. Okay, so what they were doing, it cannot be all demonized. It cannot be seen in the Eastern Western terms. That is wrong way of looking at these things. All right. So West, where was the West back then? Colonizing, stealing. I don't know. If we talk about the Western, your Scandinavians and that, all right, they were all going crazy in their own countries, fighting among each other. We were studying these things as a group. So even Chinese, we had good relations with China, Japan, Korea. I'm not talking about North Korea. I'm just talking about these regions. And I'm talking about these things. I'm not talking about current state of the people. So don't be stupid. All right.
Also shrunk wrapped a lot of the garbage from the East. At least before that, you had a sort of aristocratic interest, a little bit sharper.
So I exposed the whole cult they're stealing from India, our culture, and he felt ashamed of this. Now he's trying to say that this was garbage. Okay, let's listen to the whole shit even more. I will keep things in perspective, but I will try to show you where he's lacking, at least in these things.
Interest, something a little bit more legitimate. But by the time the American New Age started up, it was all over. And we have talked before about how these Eastern pundits then, these Eastern demagogues and charlatans mobilized. They realized what had happened. Oh my God, the almighty dollar's here. So let's immediately.
See, that's how it twists these things. First of all, Eastern so-called charlatan, what he's saying charlatans. Actually, if we go into the history, proper history, not some American bullshit, American this Truman Show history. I'm talking about original history. So what happened is India has a hand in these things. Yeah, see, so let me tell you what is going on actually. What we call Hinduism in today's time. Hinduism is an ancient cultural thing, but it is not Indian anymore. There's a crazy thing going on. Like I've seen the connections. If you look into this ISKCON, ISKON subculture. So its roots are based around your this. Uh, it has a connection with your Zionism, and they're talking about Krishna, and they have dissociation within their stuff. Vishnu, so they are not talking about properly about these things. On the other hand, there are all sorts of issues in Hinduism in itself. So these things are very twisted to explain from a Buddhistic point of view. And if I say something negative, so I don't want to say anything negative about other people's culture, other people's belief. That's wrong. But the thing is, Hinduism, as the Western people see it, uh, see what Western people see when they look at Indian stuff or Eastern stuff, other cultures, other background, even if we say they don't understand the true philosophy of these things or true nature of these things. What they do is they try to intellectualize these things. In their intellectualization, they make a narrative about these things. And the narrative is more based toward the Western language. Like if there's a temple in India or anywhere else around, let's say your Indonesia, which is Muslim dominant country right now, it has a lot of Indian Hindu temples, believe it or not, or Thailand, it's more based around your Buddhism, but it has influence of Hinduism as well, or other Burma, other countries. So these countries have temples, and when you try to explain what temple is to a Western mind, how do you put in words? Because Western people don't want to do their own research. All their research is more about gathering money, the good dollar from their own people. They spread all sorts of lies about these things by half translating them or mistranslating them. So what happened is around this time, all these historical periods, there were some charlatans, and I don't want to name names. Like my name Vivek, they are charlatans in these things. They were apparently agents of CIA, believe it or not. There was a person with the same name, and he's very revered. Not exact same name. There's expansion in that name. Revered. He is seen as a good person still. And when we read about their history, not sure, but from our own people, they have disowned these people. So there's a movement, there's a whole thing going where there's an overlap of Hinduism, more your Krishna stuff, and Christianity. And there's an overlap of Gita and Bible, at least in the garbage that we get from the West, by the way. So we are not doing it. You cannot pin these things onto us. Do your research properly. We have done our research. It's your time to do this research properly. Don't be lazy. Pick your sunglasses, throw them away in a dustbin because they belong there, garbage, and do your research properly before opening your mouth about these things.
Immediately do some window dressing. And so they picked the best that they could find, those who had a better accent, those they knew the women would go for. They did this. And so they picked
So is he blaming his own women or what?
some of these sort of more
Women will go for what the fuck does he mean about this thing? What does it prove? It proves that these people have some inferiority complex or something.
seductive Eastern mystics, that they knew that when the West looks like it's going to turn to us more and want certain exposure, we've got our guys ready. And this is then what happened. And
This is the delusion speaking here. This is the issue. It's not expose. This is blindly dehumanizing somebody.
it's an old story. It's been going on for ages. But I'm just worried about the contamination. So that then when you
Contamination came from the west to the east, not the other way around. All right.
present teachings like this one of the contrarium or anything else that I do, I don't mix it up. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to fall in and go, oh, and by the way, in some sacred scripture of the East, they say the same thing. See, I'm not
See, let's talk about Hinduism a little bit more. So what I see as Hinduism and what upper caste Hindu sees as Hinduism are two different things. Because when we talk about casteism in India, this casteism was created by the Westerner people, Europeans. So there's an intermingling of Indian culture, indigenous Indian culture, and your Western, your European per se. Not blaming today's European, I'm just talking about the history here. I'm not trying to be racist here, all right? So we have a proto Indian and Anglo Indian, we have all sorts of intermingling of these cultures. And I'm talking about before British, before Islamic invasion and your Portuguese invasion and your French, all sorts of invasion. They all had their colonies in India somehow. Okay, and these people, they came to India to do these things. They tried to steal everything, not just our spices or something else. They also stole these things as well. And now see how conveniently this person is scapegoating us again. Instead of looking at these things properly, taking his own responsibility or his ancestors' responsibility, since he's talking in these terms. See how conveniently he's scapegoating us. Like he was a child and we took the candy from his hand. So look at these people's state right now.
going to build those bridges. They don't need to be built. There's nothing but that's just a ruse. And then a lot of poison comes in at night when you weren't looking. No, you don't.
Poison that is being spread right now in the Iran or other parts of of the earth. He does not see all these things. How the fuck is what we have preached that they stole, by the way? They forced us to tell them, and they defiled it and they twisted it. How is that our problem? Let's talk about Vikings for a second. They used to tear people from limb to limb. What was that? That was not toxic. Look at the Thor, the bullshit of Thor, and all this crap that's full of hatred and rage and narcissism. That is what toxin is actually. Yeah. So what he's talking about right now, whatever he's going to espouse about, it's his own brethrens. They try to hijack our culture and suppress people. They forget their own doing. It's hilarious. It's hilarious.
need to do it. If you have a legitimate interest in going to the East, by all means, go and study it, and study it assiduously. And I recommend even names in that. Yeah. So I'm not.
Eastern philosophies are so much, and they're still continuing to evolve. So, no way you can study these things from a Western mind, first of all. In order to understand Eastern stuff, you need to be Eastern. You cannot, you will always misinterpret these things, misattribute these things, and there are the things that he's saying there's some issue, those issues are also there. So it's really difficult for a Western mind to actually do the justice to these philosophies. Then second, on top of all that, I've studied Western stuff a little bit in terms of these things. That is not my thing per se. When these people are attacking me, I had to study these things. What the fuck am I even dealing with? Then I came to understand all their philosophies. They're driven and stolen. Like, for example, in the older times, somebody stole something, sneakily snuck these things out from our country. They created a whole narrative around that using the Western garbage to fool Western masses. And then that thing became some sort of philosophy in their twisted that has no the background other than that there was a person who started this thing, this doctrine. Like he talk about Manly P Hall a lot, and Manly P Hall is chanting Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, and he's seeing Manly P Hall as a revered guru. He's totally dissociated. So what was Manly P Hall? Manly P Hall was not some Western person. Okay, he was thief, to say the least. I don't want to degrade these people like these people degrade our culture. So let's talk about that poison for a second.
Against that. But you've got to watch this cheap cross pollination, this Eckhart Tolle type of style. And so this article, amongst others, tries to pare that away and just deal with the simple metaphysics of it in a short, contemporary manner that it can be read by anyone and contemplated by anyone. So that's basically background. Oh yeah, and then one other thing could be said is not only with this Eastern jive, because we've been exposed to it on a pop level for so long, there's also this sort of a movement. It started sort of underground, but it's getting traction by the day. And it's called.
There's no background of the West. West has stolen things. There's a one background in the West, I would say, that was Roman Empire, and that Roman Empire was based around Egyptian. So I don't think that this is how it is. You cannot change the history. What's done is done. Most of these, if you look at the terms, the pure Western philosophies, they're based around some Thor mythology. They're fake, made up stories. So I don't think that these people had any authentic, genuine background that was not stolen from the Eastern backgrounds. Pardon me if I come off too strong here, but history is history. Either there was a history or there was no history. And lying about history, twisting things with narratives, would it make any history? Why are you even studying history? Stop studying history. Right? If you talk into the Western pantheon, you will go as far as Rome and Greece a little bit. And they have stolen things directly from the Egypt. Egypt is Eastern or Western? You decide it. Right? And in these three big places, once again, Rome was pure Eastern if you look into these things, but it was heavily influenced by the your Misr, your Egypt. So was it completely entirely Western, or was it influenced by the Eastern philosophies still? I'm not saying it's per se Indian. I'm talking about the East and West thing that he's espousing, and he's trying to blame, scapegoat India about everything. So it's all horseshit he's doing right now.
The non-dualism movement, or
Non-dualism movement. What? This person is totally lost. See, non-dualism is a philosophy. Is an ancient, older philosophy of India. It's called Advait. Dvait, Advait. Dvait means two. Advait means one. So dualism, Dvait, Advait, one single. So when we what are these philosophies are, and you have to have a philosophical mind to understand these things. Don't use your logic for now. If you are talking about the philosophies are not strictly based around logic. They have a artistical factor also. So although they have some logic as well, but it's not purely logical based. So these philosophies, they have always existed. There was no movement about these things. So these philosophies have always existed throughout the history of India. And in this philosophy that he's naming here right now, Advait, that is same thing. If we look at your Big Bang theory of the West, it's in a way like that. So when we look at the Brahman, the universe, the creation that we are all part of, and everybody tried to have some philosophy around this thing. Big Bang theory is still a theory. It's not a fact, right? So everybody had their theories or these things. In the theory, people try to establish, older people try to establish that is there one origin of Brahman universe or two? Whether we are part of universe or since we have a consciousness. So in Dvait or dualism and Advait, non-dualism, we're trying to, like, we have another philosophy, Dvait, dualism, where Manas means mind is distinct from Purush. Purush means the experiencer. The nature, sorry, the nature is different from the Manas. So it's a little bit twisted. Trust me. So dualism says that mind is beyond uh, the nature. The mind is superior than nature. So what no dualism, by the way, Buddhism also is a part. It's in a way has this thing incorporated in itself. Where we are talking about Advait. We are as an integral part of the nature. Now there is a philosophy about this thing in Buddhism and Hinduism. Hinduism has a whole different take about this thing. So there was no movement. We did not do any movement. Movement is a Western thing. These are our philosophies. We generated these philosophies, and generated we try to look at what we are dealing with, like people look into the science. Since India had its own systems in the old times, where science was integrated, like there was an integrated society in the old time. Believe it or not, today's modern psychologists, they are looking forward toward that, to integrate religion, not in the crazy way, no, and sciences into one thing, so that this need, like they are needs of hierarchy of needs, to be honest. So in the top level of need is need of recognition and all stuff. So yeah, so let's get back to this. Whatever the horseshit he's spewing, it's garbage.
whatever they want to call it, right? It's based in the thought philosophy of non-dual. And we've done a couple of programs on Enslaved, which people should watch because they go into great detail. We're not going to be able to do any justice to it.
All his details are garbage. I've given you more detail than him, his whole cult. Passio, Boza, this and that. All they are connected. Okay, and they are connected to your David Icke also. David Icke also has a lot of things wrong, right?
here, and there's no need because it's all there. And this started, and it's obnoxious. It again is part and parcel of this infestation of rats.
See how graphical he's becoming about these things. Infestation of rats. When they were the rats. If you look at the Indian history, it's enriched with culture, values, all sorts of things. If you look at the history of the rats, actual rats of Britain, they were all over the people's countries, stealing, thieving, uh, attacking, molesting. They were the actual rats. What the fuck is he even? Is he drunk or what?
From the Orient and from the East, coming in when you weren't looking, and eventually
We're not sending anybody there. You garbage people are coming here, stealing our stuff, defiling those things, and taking to your whole shitholes and destroying yourself with them without understanding, with your ego and hatred toward the people's culture. This covert hatred toward everybody else's culture.
people like me would know. Let's wait and see. Sit back, you know, and keep your binoculars going, keep a storm watch going, because you're going to find this thing growing. Like a farmer who's suddenly found that there's a new bacteria amongst the sugar cane, or that there's
Then stop your people.
a new locust or something, new hybrid is eating everything up, right? Oh dear, here we go. Well, this is another one. And it's entirely due to Eastern paths coming in and contaminating the mind of some very, very regressed people. And my worry is that it's going to be a very big problem in the
I've seen this whole thing in Mark Pessio's cult, and Michael Tazarian is part of same garbage. Satyakas Boza was a very regressed person. Mark Pescio is a very regressed person. Trust me. And these people somehow think that they are advanced. They have bypassed, or they have moved forward, and they have evolved something. And they are all, their vocabulary is full of these new agey terminology. And funny part is these people sucked me into this thing, and they did not expect the punching back to punch back. And when I started to punch back, I gave these people 4 years, 4 years to stop. They were lost in their hubris. They were attacking me. And when I started to talk about these things, all the garbage, it got exposed. Merely me trying to defend myself and my culture, all the garbage, all the lies got exposed. I did not expose anything per se to expose these people. It got exposed because the whole shit was based around on whole shit, on the deception of people.
future. Because it's going to tie in, they're going to dovetail this new Christian, the interest in Christianity that was brokered by people like Charlie Kirk and Russell Brand.
How is he connecting Christianity with Hinduism? Eastern philosophy, Christianity, where is the connection? Is this person crazy? Hindus do not, if you look at the history, we don't condone Christianity. We don't hate Christianity. I'm talking about the real Hindus, true Hindus, or true people, moral background, and all that stuff. We don't hate Christianity. We see it as a whole different philosophy, way of looking at things. We neither condemn or condone any of this thing. They have their thing going. We have our thing going, and we believe in a healthy competition. Okay.
And by now you got Jordan Peterson and others will join. When that starts to wane and when people get very dissatisfied with it, as
Jordan Peterson is talking about Eastern philosophy. What the fuck is this person even talking about? Is this person out of his mind, or what? Is he high on something? What's going on with this person?
they will be, and also that can happen a lot faster than these way showers think, these leaders of it. They don't realize that anyone buying this might be very disenchanted within even a 2-year period. I'm worried about that time, because what do you have to refill that? You see? So at some point, when this new Christianization starts to go, yeah, yawn, I tried that, it doesn't work. That's when things like this non-dualism movement start looking more attractive, because you say, well, I've tried that.
Non-dualism movement. Why is this person talking about this thing? Like it's some sort of Western European movement. Non-dualism is the oldest philosophy of India. Buddhism is based around non-dualism. Buddha and non-dualism. It has a whole different philosophy in Hinduism as well. And non-dualism is better than dualism. By the way, dualism has issues, a lot of issues. Whatever you are seeing in terms of this, what do you call it, in today's time, whatever the hell is going on, manusmriti or whatever the fuck, that's dualism. It's the or if you look into this philosophy of this, there are connection between Israel and this dualism. There's some connection that I could not put my finger on still, because I don't understand much from the Judaism or your Zionism for now. There are some parallel on these things that I could not properly interpret, because and I don't like to spread disinformation and all stuff. So I'm keeping myself away from that for now. But there is clearly a overlap of your dualism or this Manusmriti and your this Zionism. Since Zionism is it's corrupting Christians. See, it's an interesting thing since we have brought this thing up. Let's talk about Zionism a little bit. I will continue this in a bit. So, what is Zionism? I've seen this thing right now. Let's talk about Sethikos Boza a little bit. Sethikos Boza used to teach Kabbalah, right? And later on he stopped, but he still is a part of that same thing going. And he talk about Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail right now. So what I've seen these elites, they are all connected with the Zionism right now. And as far as I've understood, I'm talking about the civil society. If you look objectively at these people, what they're talking about, not through their narrative. So when we look at the Zionism, you can see that it has corrupted mostly the elitist part of the society, and there's some sort of people I've seen. I think they are Zionist Hindus also. Nobody is looking at this thing, but they are Zionist Hindus. We've all known about Zionist Christians, Zionist Islamist, you Arabic people. So Zionists, it's hard to put in the word, but I've seen all the craziness that is going on in the world. It is going on because of this thing. Now I have understanding on this thing, but it's really difficult to explain this thing right now. So these Zionists and your non-dualism, sorry, non-dualism is all right. Dualism, Dvaita, where Prakriti, the nature, is a separate part from the Manas mind. So what they're looking at is they're saying that mind, as in artificial intelligence, all right, try to make connections. It's really interesting. Mind is not an integral part of nature, and mind is superior to the nature, and nature is there to serve the mind. Believe it or not, look it up. If you have your things properly set, look it up. Dualism, all right. And I think this person and most of the Western philosophies, they're based around or their Zionism is based around this dualism. And I think this person, he is an agent also, somehow. I'm not blaming him, but either he is narcissist and I've challenged his narcissism, so he's attacking that. Still, he is also. You will not understand this thing. My beef with these people for 6 years, and they use these terminologies, these tropes. They don't want to use direct things directly. Maybe they want to have an upper hand. Something is going on because these people, they challenge you to say that you, but they never have a discussion with you. So they do this thing with virtue signaling and all this stuff. So yeah,
right? I followed the herd and I tried that. It didn't work. Yeah, there's something really rad about this. And it only takes another Rhonda Byrne, another Russell Brand. You see, it needs a nice packaging. The people who've fronted it.
what the fuck is Russell Brand has to do with Hinduism? Russell Brand is a junkie. He was a junkie. He's a weak character, and he is in lost in his hubris, where he thinks himself as a social icon somehow, because he had a little bit influence on the people. He's attention thirsty. He has always been attention thirsty. So anyway, he was talking about Eastern stuff. Then he's jumped to Christianity, and somehow Russell Brand is following Hinduism. What the fuck is he implying here?
Right now are just miserable types. But it only takes a rock star. It only takes somebody with a gift of the gab tomorrow to pop out of the blue and suddenly they're fucking viral. And if it's bankrolled, it'll be the new thing. It'll be this non-dualism will be the new thing, and it'll dovetail very well with.
Let me give you one more thing. It will not be a new thing. It is the thing. It is the real thing. And I'm not talking about philosophy right now. When these people, one of the member of these people's cult, Satyakas Boza, he abused me, attacked me, harassed me, did narcissistic abuse onto me. I had to study psychology. And I found parallel between psychology and Buddhism. Although psychology, it is against religions, but I've seen, see, there are issues with all the philosophies in the world, even psychology, even science. There are issues, real issues. So nothing is exempted from these things. But my issue is when everything has an issue that are clearly right into your face. Like, for example, some people are talking about shit about Dalai Lama, that Dalai Lama's name came 150 times on Epstein files. So having somebody's name on Epstein file is enough to attack the person. What was the context? Why his name was dragged there? All right, we will see about this because there is a factor in the Tibetan Buddhism. There is a factor in Tibetan Buddhism that promotes these things, believe it or not. So I'm not denying this thing completely. On the top of all this thing, still yet, there's a serial P. I don't want to say this word. PDF, serial PDF, who is still the head of the state, sitting in the office, and people are trying to deny that he was not that. So this is the hypocrisy of these things. So since a background of philosophy has some issues, so Western people automatically become in charge. They forget their own history, or what? They forget their own actions, and they start to scapegoat. Non-dualism, Advait, is like Buddhism is also Buddhistic philosophies around that. It's not entirely around Advait. Advait is a Hindu take on that same philosophy, that same phenomena as Buddhism. But Hinduism has philosophy on Dvait and Advait. All right. Buddhism is purely based around non-dualism. So the same thing that is science also basing its things around. By the way, Michael Tsarion and psychology. Michael Tsarion is saying that that thing is wrong, right?
some New Age stuff. It'll get a very big backing from the New Age. It won't get any backing from Christians, and it won't get any backing from anyone who's done the homework I hope people will have done.
Who is he's even saying New Age? New Age is Western people. If he's talking about Hinduism as New Age or Buddhism as New Age, so clearly he's not putting his words. He's not choosing his words properly, because Hinduism is not same as New Age. Hinduism is older than Christianity even, and your Buddhism is not. What? New Age is a Western thing. It's not Indian thing, right? We don't call Hinduism New Age. We don't call Buddhism New Age. New Age, what we see when we see it, Western stuff, it's a Western thing. It's not Eastern thing. Maybe it's driven around misinterpretation. People like him, they promote New Age, by the way, out of their ignorance.
They'll be on to it. But I'm afraid that still leaves a lot of other anarchic minds out there, these ayahuasca types, they're still, don't you worry.
Anarchic mind. What? Is he not an anarchist anymore? All his friends are anarchists. Mark Pesce is an anarchist. Sethicus Buddha is an anarchist. So what the fuck is going on with these people? They became constitutional now.
There's been plenty of, it'll have plenty of followers. And
So
that's my,
why Michael Tessarian? I've always noticed why Michael Tessarian has a dumbass. Always some dumbass, some younger person to have his interview. What's this thing? Why he do not have people of some at least intellectual maturity? There's this David Whitehead person also with Michael Tessarian. But I don't think these people are critically challenging each other. It's like they are creating a segment and talking about the segment. Like they have pre-planned this interview, so-called quote-unquote interview, where one is going to nod his head, never ask any critical questions from these people, and they will create this segment, and then they will make it glorify themselves with this. What?
my worry of tomorrow, but it all originates with the East. So several of my articles.
See, nothing is per se originated from East. The thing is, and I will say this, nobody else would tell you these things. The thing is, we people were into studies, education, this and that, when everybody else was enjoying their heathenistic pleasures. All right. So we had the oldest history of keeping things like quote unquote academic in our own sense, trying to note down things, trying to understand these philosophies, the nature of universe, this and that. We were early boomers about this thing when others were lost into their materialistic things. So this is the wrong thing. But is this our mistake? Pardon us for being more educated than you people when you were lost in all sorts of madness. Is it a bad thing?
Try to delve into that and just make people a little bit wary. And if this is all new to somebody listening, we can link up to another article I've got called Stilling the Mind. Stilling the Mind deals directly with the Eastern threat, right? These other ones only touch on it a little bit, but Stilling the Mind is a harder knock at it, and
Stilling the mind, a philosophical concept of Buddhism. So he's plagiarizing or what?
so that might introduce people. If they find this a bit odd, they go, what's your problem? What's all this? If you're really interested to find out what it's all about, and because it might be new, it might be.
See, I see energy in Michael Tsarion. He's like this is a defiant energy. I've seen this energy in these people mostly. Michael Tsarion have this Sethicus Boza. He had this to defy blindly defy. Mark Pesce has this defiant energy, and somehow they think that this defiant energy, this lack of their own original history or background or in anything per se, so it shapes into this covert hatred toward people's stuff that already exists. So what they do is they try to pull those things, they demonize those things, smear their garbage, their projections within those philosophies, and they try to become hero, knower of something, some sort of philosopher, with their sunglasses and hats on, with their hoodies and all stuff. So what? Theater playing something does not change the history, does not change the fact. Let's talk about fact sometime. This defiance is enough.
something you've never heard of before. Then, and I'm not bashing all of the East. I'm not bashing martial arts and some of the other things that come out of the East. Not at all. But again, as I say, that article will help. I've got an article on mysticism. It's just called Mysticism, Truth or Falsity. It's all on the same website, michaeldesarian.com. And it'll explain everything in clear language. There'll be no doubt about what I'm about in that.
Mm.
Clear language, half of his language is ambiguous right now. He was talking about East, then started talking about Christianity, then he's talking about East again. Where's the connection? So these people, what they do is they twist things even further, then clarify those things. Where's the connection between your this what was the name of the junkie from Britain and the Eastern stuff, Christianity and Eastern stuff? What?
And just to set it up a little bit more for maybe people that are newer coming into this, I guess people have a spiritual sort of inclination or attitude or experiences that they've had previously in life, or it's sort of a fundamental part of being human in a way. And throughout the history of the West, I guess for the least the last 2,000 years, you've had Christendom. And then, of course, you have then the Enlightenment period taking off. A part of that is this rise of science. You have Nietzsche comes along, one of the great philosophers. He has that famous declaration of God is dead. The Western psyche then, I guess civilization, the collective mind, moves into this
And these people they glorify Nietzsche, and at the same time they claim that Buddhists are nihilistic. This thing has blown my mind multiple times. These people will blame you for being nihilistic when you are stating the facts how they are. When these people are night and day spewing their spewage, and you're trying to keep things in perspective, they call you nihilistic because they get nothing over these philosophies. So their hatred and their this pent up uh, lack of things, or envy, I believe. I think this is envy, to be honest. They try to project this thing onto things that were functional, that ran the societies in functional sense for many many centuries, not just some decades or something. Okay.
sort of atheistic type of thought. They go, no, it's all about science. It's all material. It's all
Once again, let me clarify one more thing. Atheism is not a universal definition for people who do not believe in a deity or in a god figure or something. People can still be like, there's a Christian definition of atheism that they try to impose on people to keep their control on other people. And in that definition, the atheism, the perspective of people become rather negative toward an atheistic people. Atheism, not following a deity or a godhead, does not mean a person is depressed or nihilistic, something. All right. So it has nothing, no connection with the psychology, but they use this atheism as a part of somebody's looking at things that is very pessimistic. So atheism is not synonym with pessimism, by the way. All right. You cannot believe in a god because if you look at the children, at all the newborn babies, they're all atheistic until up until somebody introduced them with some concept of religion or god. All right. So it's a learned behavior. Theism or following a god is a learned behavior. Naturally, there's no, people do not come on this earth so with a theosophy or some theory, something, some philosophy. No, people learn religion on earth. So I don't think that being what you are naturally makes you atheist or something. These people, they will steal these things, mix these things in the future videos. Never give me any attribute. They will not attribute me properly. But when there will be a time, they will scapegoat me once again. Yeah, let's see.
Machinery, it's all mechanistic, and it's about dominating nature and this kind of thing. This moves forward. We go through the world wars. Obviously, these are catastrophic events. They deeply affect the psyche of man. Then you have the age of sort of love in the 1960s, then that rises afterwards. This is where this new answer to this
So he forgot to mention the Satanism, Crawlism. He forgot to mention all sorts of witchcraft and everything else. So are these people even presenting history properly?
spiritualist world that the West had become. And this is where these new Eastern ideas come into. This is where you see the rise.
See, there are issues with a lot of things. We also suffer these things. So I'm not blindly bashing these people for this. And it's good that they are finally catching these things also. Let's have an open discussion. What's with all ad hominem attacks on these things, name calling and all stuff? So that's these people are incapable of doing because they think they are on some tier, some top tier.
The psychedelics then taken off as well too, and through into the 70s. Naturally, that's progressed towards our more modern era where science has taken off further. Technology has become such a giant behemoth of the technological manipulation of the world around us that people have continued to lose faith. We're seeing a resurgence of what's happened with the new atheist movement. So, like, again, one of the people at the forefront was this new atheist movement was the Richard Dawkins, the Sam Harris, Daniel Dennis types that took over. But they
How many movements the West has? Why do we need all these movements? New Nazism, new atheism, new thisism, new thatism. Why is this even a thing? Why do we need to kill these things first? Then, like, how do you call it? Resurrect these things again and again. Why not people take the lesson that is need to be taken? Why do we keep falling for the same things over and over again? Because West has no true identity. Its identity revolves around other people's identity that they can bash into that. It's more like it's clear now. Look at all these wars, what how they play these their games. First, they have a plan that is covert. They have a whole strategy for that. That is also covert. It has happened multiple times. Then they provoke the rather peaceful or people who are minding their own businesses, and then they try to smear them with something, with a narrative that they are doing, that is their own doing, and then they attack those people. So it's like a fail-safe mechanism. It's a strategy that is already prepared, and then they try to get the reaction from the people to theater play in the fantasy, so that later on these people will not get caught. So this is the true quote unquote philosophy or spirituality of the West, I think, as far as I've witnessed in my living years on this earth. This is not the first time they've done this. They've done this multiple times to multiple people, multiple background. There's some sort of insecurity, I believe, that is keep on uh, creating and regenerating these things in the best Western pantheons, I believe.
all sort of just petered off, they all just sort of died off of recent years, and there's been a vacuum left. As you were saying, we've then been witnessing this resurgence in sort of Christianity or maybe even Islam in certain parts of the West, sadly. Again, you mentioned Charlie Kirk and the likes of people sort of falling into these kind of lines of thought. Naturally, that's not really going to tether back into the mind. I think the West has moved on through that. Again, there might be an inclination to go back to it slightly, but as you mentioned, I don't think it's going to hold. And then that leaves the gap open once more for these Eastern philosophies, as you mentioned. I guess my question, maybe even just understanding a little bit about the difference of the Eastern philosophies, is it that I think what it does to people that, again, I've sort of experienced in my own life is they get an experience of the transcendent, of the sort of the spiritual realm, or maybe come into contact with the archetypes in a certain sense. And they go, oh, I never got this from my old sort of going to church or going to mass or whatever.
No, should I make another video for this? See, people, what Western people do not recognize is, in our philosophy, in our culture, we have already studied these things. We have already identified these things. The thing is, uh, we don't have the Western definition for these terminology. We already understand these things, phenomena that people say modern medicine, this and that. What we see when West come to the same conclusion that we had with a different philosophy or different narrative for this thing, we feel a little bit cheated, because when we were doing the same thing, we were treated as we were some savages, and this part of the same psychopathy that I just talked to you about. Because Western people, they repack everything under their name after stealing those things and destroying the original owners, reclaim these things. uh, we have this Thomas Alva Edison and your this Nikola Tesla. So there are two types of Western people. One is Nikola Tesla, that is once again from the West, from European background. So I believe Indo-European, because he was from the Slavic land of this Hungary or somewhere, or sorry, Serbia, somewhere around that. Okay, so we have this same background with that, and then we have this Western, pure Western background. That is the Thomas Alva Edison is like Donald Trump. These type of people, they have the same mindset. So this is what I have come to understand in conclusion, that West always talk about Eastern stuff, this and that, this and that. And the whole entirety of the narrative is infested by these people's language and their half-wit, twisted knowledge as well. So yeah, yesterday once again, I respect a psychologist. I follow his. I've learned a lot from him. Let's put it like that. And he was talking about psychology. He's saying that psychology is, let's change how we look at the psychology. Instead of doing things for individual, let's do it for the whole community. And he forget the fact he was more about societal norms and this and that. He's a little bit too much into that, instead of understanding, because he himself is a narcissist. So psychology is not a tool. It's not a. And he's way more intelligent than me. Trust me. So I don't know how he meant, but it did feel weird. So psychology means, why a person need a psychiatrist or psychologist, because the person is suffering. And that's why it should be done on personal level. So what actually is, like, he was not wrong when he was talking about the society as well, but he forgot the fact that society is being maintained by the law. It is being maintained by the politicians. They are corrupted. In old time it was religion that's corrupted. People are corrupted right now. Right, these Zionists, they have corrupted everybody to cause the division so that they can survive, right? So yeah, psychology should focus on the reducing the suffering of people. Either it can be divided into two parts, where one part is taking things personally. He's not wrong when he's talking about that there are clusters of people who are internetworked with others, and those clusters are being poisoned. These people like him, this they're part of that network, by the way, and they are infecting each other's mind with their own delusions and disorders. So that's also a thing, and he's not wrong there. But psychology per se, it is an individual thing. What Like, everything should not be the responsibility of psychologist. What people can do with this thing is to keep these other things, elements like politics or any other social dynamics of the society, clear of these corruption and all sorts of things. Why have they allowed this thing in the politics? Even the all those I've seen multiple about I've heard from people from multiple countries that all the supreme courts of the countries are corrupted right now. These top tier elites, gang of elites, they've corrupted them, and they wanted to hijack those. So yeah,
And that's why they continue then to latch on to it because they get that one short experience that you can have doing things like meditation, breathing exercise, and whatnot. What are the other major traps of the East then? You're saying about non duality. What really is non duality for people? And I think one of the other major things that
let's hear his let whatever Michael Tsarian is going to talk about. I did not watch this video before, but I'm let me predict whatever he's going to talk about this non-duality. It's a reflection of his own ignorance. Let's see whether he fits there or am I wrong? Okay.
people come into when they look at Eastern philosophies is this concept of awakening. If you could maybe tee up what those are a little bit, and then we'll dive into the article about what dualism is and how that's fun.
Awakening is not an Indian stuff, Eastern stuff. Awakening is if you go to this awakening, I will credit this more to Mark Passio. Okay, it's not our thing. Enlightenment is not same as awakening. At the same time, what people have interpreted it as enlightenment, the Western mind has interpreted enlightenment is very different from what we people see. So I don't know how to even discuss these things anymore with a Western mind, to be honest.
Fundamental to the Western sort of school of thought.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I have no time for almost all of it. The Eastern
Of course, he will not have any time for this, because if he said he spewed something wrong, he will get like pointed at.
traditions, there are some good ones there, but in general, it's a big farce, which was slowly concocted over many thousands of years. That's why it's difficult for us to even
Yeah, he's right here.
envision it. And most people's vision of the East is really rather laughably stupid as tourists at best. And also did over many thousands of years. That's why it's difficult for us to even envision it. And most people's vision of the East is really rather laughably stupid as tourists.
He's keeping things. I should stop using this tone. I believe he's also trying to see the way he presents these things with his covert narcissism. That pisses me off, to be honest.
At best. And also because a lot of this bankrolling went into creating this exotic image of these towel heads, these ganja wallers, and in
See, racism. Who would not get angry over these things?
movies and this whole thing. A lot of energy's gone into it, and it works.
Non-dualism and ganjewala. What the fuck is he even talking about? They're all connected. So is he an idiot or what? Why is he mixing everything? Because he's lacking the actual knowledge of these things. There are different philosophies in India, and these people, when he Western mind is, I don't think that Western mind will ever be fair toward other people's stuff. How much they want other people to be fair toward them, they don't have any respect toward other people's stuff.
It really does. It works on a kind of an anarchic Western mindset. And always, 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 traditionally, down through the hundreds of years, it would have always been more interesting to those who knew nothing about the Western tradition. You get these little equations and they work. And you start to find this out when you go on the trail of it. So the
What is going on with these people? Are they not anarchist anymore? What has happened? As far as I've understood, his podcast still called as Enslaved. So he's not anarchist anymore, or what? What's going on with him? Has he jumped? Is he? There's a terminology called monkey branching. Is he monkey branching now? Since this ship is about to sink.
Person who gets seduced by it does so fairly early in their teens. It look
Okay, what I've been talking for a while. It's been 1 hour plus. I will create a second part of this. Let's see. Whoa, I've been talking about 1 hour 49 minutes. So I will create a second part of this as well. Okay.